Could the Xbox Series S be a true competitor to the PlayStation 5? The Xbox Series S is kind of like that little brother to getting into the next generation console. It's $100 cheaper, it's significantly smaller than the other two next generation consoles, and it is very enticing if you're somebody who is just trying to jump in and play next gen games. Now, before we get into this any further, if you guys are new here and you enjoy what you see throughout this video, I'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button to help this channel grow and help grow this community so we can have some great conversations in the comments below. So TechRadar put out this article talking about the Xbox Series S and trying to see if it was a real threat to the PlayStation 5. Now, there wasn't really anything new talked about in this article. It's stuff that if you're following the video game industry, you've probably seen these points made before. I've made these points on previous videos about the Xbox Series S, but it does bring up a really interesting point of discussion, so I just wanted to go over it. When it comes to the actual specs of the Xbox Series S, it is definitely the least powerful console of the bunch, but it still does great things for the amount that you're paying. You're still getting access to ray tracing. You're still getting games that can output at 120 frames per second. The majority of the games are in 1080p and 1440p. So if you're somebody who doesn't have a 4K display, that's actually perfect for you. And you're still getting access to that extremely fast SSD, albeit it is only 512 gigabytes, so it will fill up fast, but there is the availability to expand that SSD if you so choose. And when we look at the 120 frames per second games, I did a quick look, and there's actually quite a lot of games that have 120 frames per second on the Xbox Series S. And what I want to point out, because this is a pretty long list that actually supports it, is that some of the major competitive or even casual multiplayer shooters have access to 120 frames per second. And I think going forward, for a lot of people who just play like Call of Duty, Fortnite, Gears 5, Halo the Master Chief Collection, Overwatch, Rainbow Six Siege, I think you get my point. These online multiplayer shooters, the 120 frames per second on a $300 console is an extremely attractive deal. And when you're playing multiplayer shooters, I think a lot of people want to play those games on a monitor, and a lot of the monitors out there are 1080p or 1440p, so the need to have that 4K output is kind of irrelevant. And you sit back and you think about it, the performance you're getting 120 frames per second on Call of Duty Warzone for a $300 console is way more than you could dream of getting on paying $300 to build a PC. So I guess that kind of leads me to my first point in terms of what games are you going to want to play will help determine if the Xbox Series S is a threat to picking up a PlayStation 5, even though the PlayStation 5 digital edition is only $100 more. So if you're somebody who wants to play the PlayStation exclusive, you're obviously going to be getting a PlayStation 5. And that means that the Xbox Series X wouldn't even be a threat to the PlayStation 5 for you. But if you're somebody who is just looking to play multiplayer shooters and multi-platform games that support 120 FPS, you're going to be looking at an Xbox Series S as an option to get into the next generation. And if we're sticking on the topic of multiplayer shooters, this is one example that has happened recently, which I thought was very interesting. And it's that Overwatch got 120 FPS support on the Xbox Series X and S, but not on the PlayStation 5. And this kind of ties back to my point about somebody who only plays first-person shooters or only plays a specific game. You're an Overwatch player, you play that thing competitively every single day, and you want to get a next generation console. You go into the store and you see that the Xbox Series S for $300 outputs this game at 120 frames per second, and the PS5 doesn't. You may decide to pick up an Xbox Series S at $299 versus a PS5 digital at $399. Now, I don't play Overwatch on the PlayStation 5. This article was published on March 10th about this Overwatch, and I haven't seen anything else where they've updated the PS5 version to 120 FPS. I couldn't find that information, but if it has, you guys do play on the PS5, please let me know in the comments below. On top of that, if you're somebody who just wants to get into Game Pass, the best deal in gaming, the Xbox Series S is a great option. If you just want to have access to it and you want the cheapest avenue to get in, you're going to be looking at an Xbox Series S. If you're somebody who wants to play Bethesda games going forward, as they are going to be exclusive to Xbox Game Pass and the Xbox ecosystem, the Xbox Series S is definitely a threat to somebody who's looking at that versus picking up a PlayStation 5. Now, this article says here that they do not think that the Xbox Series S's appeal has resonated quite as well with consumers as it could have. And we aren't even a year into the next generation consoles, and that makes a lot of sense. When a new console is dropped, the people that run out and buy them are the people that want the cutting edge of console technology. They want to have the most powerful console available. So it makes complete sense that the Xbox Series X is going to be flying off the shelves well before the Series S ever does. And as we move through this generation, more and more casual style gamers, or more and more people that don't really play everything, they may play 1 or 2 games, they don't follow the video game industry, are going to want to get in to the next generation of consoles. And we're going to see bundles and the value of the S and even the X and the PlayStation 5 increase as they add in games to the bundles, as they have special editions and stuff like that. And the pricing may even drop a bit. And at that point, people are going to be looking at what is the best bang for their buck, where are the games that they want to play, and how can they play those games. A lot of people like me, maybe like you, on Twitter, on YouTube, we look at comparisons of games from the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X, and the Xbox Series S, and then we go on the internet and we debate the difference between the versions of the games. We count the pixels, we look at the frames per second, and that in reality is a very small amount of the market that actually do that and actually seriously care about that when choosing a console. So in general, you're going to have people that don't really care about that, looking at where can they get the best bang for their buck. And the Xbox Series S is going to be a real threat in this generation in winning people over, especially if Xbox does a great job of marketing Xbox Game Pass and letting people know the amount of value in that service and what they can get if they're just spending $300 on a console. On top of that, getting Bethesda games, and on top of that, getting the 120 frames per second for games like Call of Duty. So I guess to sum up this video, is the Xbox Series S a real threat to the PlayStation 5? It really just depends on what you want to play, but I think it is a great move on Xbox, what they did with the Xbox Series S. With the acquisition of Bethesda and what we're seeing now with the value in Game Pass, it's all becoming more and more clear what Xbox is trying to do this generation. And the reason why they released the Xbox Series S, I think, is going to be a big, smart decision in terms of getting more people into the ecosystem, in terms of increasing these subscriptions to Xbox Game Pass, which in general will probably mean, as people on the Xbox ecosystem, more value is going to come. We'll probably see more third-party AAA games coming on day one, like we are seeing with Outriders on April 1st. And that has me excited that they really thought ahead for everything this next generation in order to provide Xbox Game Pass as the best deal in gaming and just provide us with a ton of content and continuously increase that value. But anyways, guys, that's it for me. That's just what I think about this. I could be wrong. So I would love to hear what you guys think about this in the comments below. Do you truly think the Xbox Series S could be a threat to the PlayStation 5, or do you think it has absolutely no chance? Let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you are new here and you like what you see throughout this video, I'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button to help this channel grow and help grow this community so we can have some great conversations in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video.